Since we're in the midst of the most comfortable apocalypse, it's time to talk about the last time we went through something similar. Nope, not that. I'm talking about The Faculty. The Faculty is a cult classic film that follows a ragtag group of high schoolers as their own town gets overrun by aliens. When the T-1000 gets infected, he starts becoming the literal definition of a fuckboy and starts flirting with Principal Drake.
Coach Willis, what can I do for you?
You look very, very pretty tonight.
She learns that he isn't actually flirting with her by the subtle clues that he throws, like stabbing her hand with a pencil. Trying to get away, she sees another teacher outside who tells her the coach is on her ass. Principal Drake manages to not only open the padlock, but undo the chains, get through the door, and reloop the chains in the 2 seconds it would have taken the coach to get her. Also, why lock the doors with literal chains? Is this Detroit? It turns out that Mrs. Olsen has been smoking what the coach is selling because she goes full red rum and kills her with scissors.
I always wanted to do that.
So this movie came out like 22 years ago, so at this point we all know it's aliens. We've all watched this, but if the aliens are taking over, why are they tearing up their meat suits? It would be pointless to be walking around without like 4 limbs, you know what I mean? We eventually get introduced to the cast. Casey, Morbius, Animal Kingdom,
Hey there, Delilah.
off-brand Josh Hartnett, and Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson. So if this is the main cast, can someone explain why Usher is on the cover? Casey ends up finding an unusual chicken nugget and turns it into his teacher, Mr. Furlong, for further analysis. After discovering that this new species thrives in water, they do the only logical thing and put it in tons of it. Like, why the hell would you choose to do that? You don't know what this thing is. Also, don't put your hand in it. As soon as that thing turns into 2, the only thing you should have done next is burn the whole building down. But Mr. Furlong here, he decides to stick his hand.
God damn it!
After this, Stan goes into the showers, and this scene is like when you make a wish to a genie and the genie screws you over, because Stan apparently said, "I wish to have shower sex with my teacher." And the genie went, "Oh, it'll be a teacher, all right." So this lady starts stripping and her skin is like slowing off. She tells him that they want everyone.
They want everyone.
And then she leans on his chest and get this, guys, he lets her. Apparently, the aliens try to take over her body, but since she's old and frail, her body began to deteriorate faster, so the aliens preferred them young, it seems.
Why don't you take a seat right over there?
Moving on, Casey and Delilah hide in a closet inside the teacher's lounge when Coach and Mrs. Olsen come in and talk about the progress of infecting the school. Then they get front row seats to Selma Hayek's initiation. Later that night, Casey brings his dad, Shooter McGavin, and the police, but when the faculty disproves his claims, no one believes Casey. When they get back home, Casey tries to sneak out after getting grounded and gets swarmed by the faculty. But they disappeared when his dad comes. Like, how come? Why not just infect both of them right there? Like, what were they gonna do? Moving on though, Casey and Delilah try to recruit Stokely and Stan. Stokely compares their situation to the works of body snatchers and puppet masters to figure out how these aliens work. The 4 of them go to the fish tank where they left the 2 parasites only to find them missing. Mr. Furlong comes in. As the students try to leave, Mr. Furlong forces them to stay, which causes them to break into a fight. Out of options, Zeke uses a sugar pen to stab Furlong in the eye, which ends up putting him down. At Zeke's house, they study a sample of the parasite that Casey was able to grab. They learn that the parasite dries out the host, which is why they're so dependent on water, and since we're made mostly of water, we've become the perfect hosts. They also learn that the drug's diuretic dries out the parasite. As the group debates fighting or running, they start turning on each other, saying any of them could be an alien. The only way to prove that they aren't is to become a druggie. One by one, they pass the test until we get to the showdown between Delilah and Mary Beth.
No. Her first. I'm allergic.
Yeah, and I'm Portuguese. Who cares?
She always this much fun, man. Sometimes she can be a real bitch.
The thing about Mary Beth is that she's mentioned she's allergic to, the substance, but the group says she has to do it, which is basically the plot of the Salem witch trials. If she doesn't take it, she's an alien. If she does take it, she'll die.
Win, win, win.
After Mary Beth risks her life, Delilah spazzes out and reveals that she was infected, which, doesn't make sense. When did she get infected, and why did it take so long? Just about everyone who gets the earwig turns immediately. Casey tries to shoot Delilah but can't, and I believe because earlier Stokely said that if they kill the queen, everyone will turn back to human. I would imagine that would make it difficult with a hole in your head. Stokely, though, has no problem committing murder, but is a terrible shot. Delilah destroys Zeke's lab and then runs off into a cab that was waiting for her. At this point, we've learned two things. At least one other alien somehow knew where she was, so how come they didn't bring an army to infect these kids? Delilah should have just ran into the night. The fact that the cab was waiting for her throws up too many plot holes. The second thing we learned is that Mary Beth is a lying bitch. She's not allergic. I'm on to you, Mary Beth, Louise Hutchinson. They decide to go to the football game to try to find the queen, and we get a montage of the evil football team infecting players of the opposing team. And here's what I'm wondering. The parasites multiply by literally splitting itself, so they can create new life instantly. But how intelligent is this new life? Is it like a newborn baby? Or does this newly birthed parasite share a subconscious? Because it's weird to think that the parasite is like, hey, I was just born 2 seconds ago and now I'm taking over your body. Stan and Stokely believe Principal Drake must be the queen, so they lure her into the gym where they jump her ass. But when Casey can't shoot her, Zeke pulls a trigger. When Principal Drake doesn't die, Mary Beth takes it upon herself to dump all of their stash on her. Also, I think it's funny that the group just always seems to be able to produce more drugs just when they run out. Delilah destroyed Zeke's lab so they couldn't make more, but he had enough left over for that huge-ass vial. And when Mary Beth dumped it out, Zeke found more in his car. It's just, with all of the pens they use up to make sure they're not aliens throughout their mission, running out of their supply was never a real issue. After killing the principal, Stan goes over to the coach and the team to see if they're human again, which, in hindsight, is a terrible idea. You gotta do reconnaissance. Don't just walk up to them excuse me, Mr. Coach, are you human now? But of course, they're not. And Stan walks right up to them as they're bathing, even though them just standing around looking up at the sky should have been a huge red flag. When he comes back, they waste another pen to make sure he's not an alien, but lo and behold, Stan is one of them.
Open the door.
Moving on, Zeke and Casey try to get the pens in Zeke's car. Casey distracts the football team through the bus parking lot as Zeke goes to the car. He gets confronted by his English teacher, Miss Burke, who he kind of bullied in the beginning of the film, most notably when he offered to give her cherry-flavored condoms. And now when he asks what he can do for her, she says she's in the mood for something cherry-flavored. So we can gather two things about these aliens. They can access the host's memories, and they can get horny. Zeke takes the car for a joyride and crashes the car, sending Miss Burke out the window. He's able to escape as her head tries to walk over to the rest of the body. That's a sentence I said. Inside the gym, Stokely and Mary Beth are talking, and it's here where Mary Beth starts speaking favorably about the aliens.
Stan, he didn't look unhappy.
It's because it wasn't Stan. It took away who he was.
Or maybe they just bettered who he was.
Suddenly, she attacks Stokely and reveals that Mary Beth is, in fact, the queen. She explains that she faked the drug test by removing the cap of the pen, letting the drug fall down. I mean, if that's the case, wouldn't have anyone else noticed it? But also in that, the test scene, the pen cap is clearly still on. Casey returns and the two of them run into the swimming pool, but the queen skinny dips and drags Stokely in. I've always thought being underwater with a large creature is like truly terrifying, and this is absolutely no exception. Like, look at that. Casey helps Stokely out of the pool, even though the Queen could have easily taken her over in the water. Zeke comes back and finds Stokely in the lockers, where across from them is a naked Mary Beth. The two warn Zeke not to trust the other.
It's her. Zeke, don't believe her. It's her.
She attacked me, please, Zeke.
What's going on here, Mary Beth?
Please. It is her.
She's lying. She's trying to fake you out. We don't know what she is. Gay, straight, alien.
And when Zeke tries to kill Mary Beth, Stokely stops him. At this point, she's an alien too. So why waste time warning him about Mary Beth? They could have teamed up and infected Zeke. I gotta tell you, for an intelligent life form, they're not that intelligent. Fast forwarding a bit, they lock Stokely in a cage and Zeke demands Casey to take the drug. After Zeke gets yeeted by the Queen, she tells Casey that their planet was dying and saying that in reality, them taking over is good for humanity. Not buying any of it, Casey lures the Queen to the gym, racing behind the closing bleachers. When the Queen gets trapped, Casey stabs her in the eye with the last 3 pens. Soon after, she dissolves and the rest of the infected humans turn back to normal. The next day, we see the town recovering and our main characters in their new lives. Stan quit the football team, Zeke joined it even though that was out of left field. Casey is a hero and dating Delilah. Stan and Stokely are also dating, and Stokely is wearing more like colorful, girly clothes, which doesn't really like seem like a development for her. Like, I get that she was making herself an outcast, but did she have to change her clothes? Like, wasn't she happy with what she was wearing? But I think the weirdest pairing of all is Zeke and Miss Burke. She's watching him from the bleachers, waving at him. And listen, he's a second-year senior, over 18, so it's legal. Morally, though, it's bad. You guys can't date. She's gonna get fired. But whatever. I guess when aliens take over your town, there are weirder things to worry about. All right, guys, and that is The Faculty. If you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe for me because I always appreciate that. And I'll be doing more of these, hopefully on Mondays more, you know. And also you guys can listen to my podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes. I'll leave the links down below. All of that, if you guys take a listen, all of that definitely supports the podcast and this channel. I'll be doing more. I'm working on doing more episodes for the podcast. I just have to kind of restructure it a little bit, but I'll be, you know, putting more stuff up for the podcast, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And you guys can always follow me on my horror page at The Horror Academy on Instagram. I'd appreciate all the support. And with that being said, guys, stay safe.